Hello, everyone, and welcome to Entertainment Weekly's What to Watch, the show where EW staff help you solve your viewing dilemmas. I'm your host, Gerrad Hall, and from all corners of the globe and all corners of your screen, my guests, senior writers Collis and Samantha Highfill, and editor-at-large Lynette Rice. Hello to all of you. How are you?
Hello.
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 It has been a long road to this moment, from the WB to the CW. But after 15 seasons and one major delay in its final season, we finally have reached the series finale of the beloved fantasy series, Supernatural. Sam, what is it about this show that gave it such an enduring presence in the TV landscape?
I mean, I think there are a million things. I think the biggest aspect of that is just they kept it interesting. And I think they were able to do that because, you know, in the early days, like, Supernatural was not a big deal to, like, the network, to audiences. I think it started off relatively small. And so they've talked a lot about how that kind of gave them a little bit of freedom of, like, I think creator Eric Kripke has called them, like, the weird emo kid at the back of the class. And he was like, it really gave us kind of the attitude of, like, let's try some stuff. Like, if they're kind of going to just let us be, let's be a little crazy.
The CW has not yet made the episode available for anybody to watch. But what do we know about it? What kind of episode do you think it will be?
I think a lot of people going into this season with God as the final villain kind of expected it to all build to a really big showdown, because the precedent they set was the season 5 finale was the creator's last season. And that was kind of his series finale of sorts. And that was a big, like, Michael versus Lucifer apocalyptic showdown. And so I think a lot of people were thinking maybe it would build to that. But they've talked a lot about how the finale itself is really kind of going to be an old school throwback episode of Supernatural, a little bit more intimate, a little bit more focused just on Sam and Dean, which is, I think, a lot of fans were really shocked when Castiel died in episode 18. Like, there were 2 episodes left, and they felt like that was early. But I think it was because they were trying to get through the myth of the season so that they could just let this final hour just kind of be like a classic throwback, which I think is how to, because it's so impossible to wrap up myth of this season and also just of 15 years. And so to kind of like attempt to do that, let it go, and then just give us like the thing we love, just give us Sam and Dean on the road. Like, I think that's the perfect approach.
So the Supernatural family, there is a rabid fan base. So where do they go? Where do you, Sam, go next? Like, what is on TV to help quench that thirst? You know, if only there was a show to help people called What to Watch.
Yeah, I mean, the obvious answer is, you know, following Gerrad and Jensen. Gerrad's obviously got Walker on the CW. Truly the thing, actually, even before Jensen joined the cast, the thing that I would have said to this is The Boys. Because anyone who knows, you know, Eric Kripke created both shows. And the second I started watching The Boys, it was like, this is Supernatural humor, like, without network restrictions.
All right, Sam. Well, let's move along, shall we? Netflix's The Crown returns this week. And are you as upset as I am that a period piece has now ventured into what feels like the not-so-distant past? Like, the beginning of my life is now considered a period piece. Cool, guys. Thanks. All right, maybe you're not, but season 4 starts off in the late 70s and takes us into the early 90s. We are now introduced to Princess Diana, The Boys, and Margaret Thatcher. All right, Clark, there's a lot riding on the addition of Princess Diana to this story. Does Emma Corrin wear this tiara well?
Well, I think she does. I'm sure people have pretty firm views either way, because Princess Diana was such a well-known and, I guess, you know, not so much polarizing figure, but you can imagine why people would have different views about the take. But no, I thought she does a great job. I thought she works very well with Josh O'Connor's Prince Charles, or not well with him when required, which is quite a lot as the 80s drag on. She wears both the glamorous outfits and the not glamorous earlier outfits very well. No, I thought she did a pretty good job.
Okay, Gillian Anderson, she is getting rave reviews for her performance as Margaret Thatcher. What is it about this performance that has everybody bowing down?
I think she's really good. There was about 2 seconds right at the start where I thought, oh, that's Gillian Anderson. And then I didn't think that for the remainder of the 10 episodes. I think like a lot of these, I mean, the actors say over and over again, they're not really playing these people, they're playing characters. Which I think is certainly good for their own mental health. And I think there's something to that because, I mean, on the one hand, Peter Morgan, the creator, goes to extraordinary lengths to make it as accurate as he can, but he's also making essentially a drama show. So, inevitably, it's not so much that he has any facts wrong necessarily, but he makes stuff up when who knows what goes on behind the closed doors of Buckingham Palace a lot.
Well, as someone who, you of course grew up watching a lot of this happen in real time, what do you make of the glamorization of this modern day monarchy?
Well, it's interesting that you say glamorization because, I mean, I think maybe the fact that there are a lot of castles once again may have,
right.
You're like, ooh, castles, which I understand. But Princess Diana was pretty glamorous to start with. I mean, actually not to start with, as I mentioned before, the early episodes, you see Emma Corrin's Princess Diana wearing some of the weirdest and worst knitwear I've ever seen, although Princess very accurate to what Princess...
slightly frumpy almost. Yeah.
Sure. Very, very similar to what Princess Diana, was wearing. But no, she was very glamorous. And actually, I mean, while she is depicted as very glamorous in The Crown, it's not really like... It's always one of the bones of contention is it's always the Princess Diana show. I mean, you wouldn't necessarily say that Prince Charles is depicted that glamorously, and obviously Olivia Colman's wonderful again, but she always looks like she's going to go out and shoot something. Basically, that's kind of what they got her dressed up in this season, I think.
All right, we need to take a quick break, but keep calm and carry on. We'll be back soon. Welcome back to What to Watch. 2 weeks ago on the show, we talked about how the realities of the COVID-19 pandemic created a unique opportunity for TV to address some of the issues facing the world in 2020. This week, we thought we'd take a look at another of the major events of the year, the protests against racial injustice, calls for police reform, and the Black Lives Matter movement overall. So, Lynette, for a medium that reflects so much of our culture, and by the way, one that has depicted police for much of its existence, how do you think procedurals need to change to reflect the times?
I think at this point, they need to at least be open to the possibility that maybe a few things can be tweaked. I mean, if you really think about it, for the most part, cops are seen as heroes. They find the bad guy. They triumph at the end of the episode, and boom, we go into a new week.
So do you think procedurals have to change in light of BLM and specifically address Black Lives Matter, or do we just need to kind of see how the movement has affected the characters? Does that make sense?
Yes, I think that just as Grey's Anatomy should address COVID because it's a hospital show, a show like SWAT should address the movement, and that's their plan. I think now the focus is on how can we tell a realistic tale of a police officer going forward. And I think CBS Studios is definitely at the forefront of that. They hired a firm that's headed by the former exec director of policing for Obama, and it's 21st century policing, and he's there kind of in a consultant capacity. The shows can call him and say, okay, can you give me some ideas, give me some fresh places to go, but also like, here's my cop A. Do I have him, beating his chest a little too much here? And then I don't think anyone wants to get away from total butthead cops because, I mean, let's be honest, a butthead cop makes for good drama. You just have to make sure that you show that butthead cop facing some consequences, which most often they do.
Yeah, that's true. So to that point, is the era of anti-hero cops over?
I think we've started to see them go away. A few years ago, of course, we're talking about The Shield. Remember the great days of The Shield. Remember the great movie Training Day. We've started to move away from those. So I don't think we're going to see those people for a while. But I also think that the writers are mindful of the fact that it can't just be all rosy and like every episode you see a cop playing basketball with some little kid in the neighborhood and like, isn't this sweet? No, that's boring. But I just think there's some room to open up the kinds of stories too, and to deal more with the day-to-day struggles of being a cop in this damn nation.
All right. Well, that is it for our show. Thank you to my guests, Lynette Rice, Clark Collis, and Samantha Highfill. And before we head out, I would be remiss not to acknowledge that we lost a TV legend this week. Alex Trebek was a monumental part of the TV landscape, and he set the bar of what an intelligent, informed host should be. He will be dearly missed. Weekdays at 7 will never be the same. All right. We will see you next week on What to Watch.